Welcome back. Lovely to see all of you again. Again, I want to first just invite you to make yourselves comfortable. So if that means sitting up and finding a comfortable upright position, please do that. If you need to recline or lie down or walk or stand, please do that. And again, you're welcome to leave your screen on if you feel comfortable doing that. You're welcome to turn your screen off, whatever feels right. All welcome. Last week, we talked about the first foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of the body, which includes mindfulness of breath and sound. And today I'd like to talk about the second and third foundation of mindfulness. It's a lot to talk about at once, but to me, they're all tied together, so it works for me. The second foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of feeling. The Pali word for this is Vedana, or contemplation of feeling, Vedananupassana. And so the word feelings here, it doesn't exactly translate to emotions. In this context, Vedana refers to feeling tone. So essentially any experience, whether it's physical or mental or emotional or spiritual, it can be categorized in these three ways: pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So that's all there is these three possibilities: pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And so this can be applied to any body sensations, including breath, including sounds, but also emotions and thoughts. Joseph Goldstein says, mindfulness of feeling is one of the master keys that both reveals and unlocks the deepest patterns of our conditioning. He writes, why is this important? Why does the Buddha single out feeling as one of the four foundations of mindfulness, as one of the five aggregates of existence? The feeling tone of experience is so vitally important because it conditions our various reactions in the mind and actions in the world. So what does he mean by that? When I'm not mindful, I experience a pleasant feeling, and my habitual conditioning is to cling to that pleasantness. I don't want it to go away, and I desire more of it. So that's very natural. When I'm not mindful, I experience something unpleasant, an unpleasant feeling, and my habitual response is dislike or aversion or avoidance. So how can I change my experience? How can I not make this happening? And how can I avoid it in the future? And then likewise, when I'm not mindful, if I experience neutral feeling, my habitual response is delusion or distraction. So I might even seek out pleasant or even unpleasant to avoid the terrible boredom that can accompany neutral. Yet, when we're mindful, these very same feelings can be the vehicle of our freedom. So that's a quote from Joseph also. When we are mindful, these very same feelings can be the vehicle for our freedom. So in mindfulness, we have the possibility to witness our experience with non-judgmental loving awareness. And we might say, oh, this is pleasant, or oh, this is unpleasant, or this is neutral. And for a moment, for just this moment, how would it be to not immediately react to my feelings, not immediately cling to or push away or become unconscious? Again, without mindfulness, these primary feeling states often lead to or are accompanied by emotions, which lead to thoughts, which leads to beliefs and belief systems, And perhaps it all happens at once, one simultaneous process. Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, he said, at the Supreme Court level where I work, 90% of our decisions are made on the basis of what we feel about things, our feelings. And the other 10% is our rationalization, where we use our mind to justify what we feel. So we all do this, even the Supreme Court justices do this. But this is an essential step to realizing that this process is happening, that all of our habitual responses are based in this simple, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And so if we can interrupt the habitual responses by simply stating that, or making a note of our experience, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, it kind of takes away the charge or the immediacy and the necessity to translate a feeling into reactivity. So I have the possibility of witnessing my human experience with more equanimity and more peace. So for me, it's difficult to talk about this without also talking about the third foundation of mindfulness, which the Buddha referred to as the contemplation of mind, or chitta, contemplation of mind, or a chitta nupassana. So it actually means observation of states of mind. When we talk about mind in this concept, we're not talking about the brain. We're not talking about thoughts exclusively. Here, the concept of mind includes patterns of thoughts, but also feelings and beliefs. Some of you who have been in class with me or in sessions with me maybe have heard me tell this story, but when I was in college, there was a student from India, and he was a Tibetan monk. When he was 3 years old, he was put in a monastery, and since he was 3 years old, he practiced as a Tibetan Buddhist monk in India. And then he was around age 19. He went to the US to go to university, and that's where we met. He was in school with me, and we became friends and ended up living together. He moved into the apartment I was living in. So his name was Sangpo, Tenzin Sangpo Samda. And Sangpo and I used to go on walks in the woods and have deep conversations about Buddhism and mindfulness and meditation. And whenever he said the word mind, he kind of unconsciously patted his belly. Or sometimes he said mind and he pointed to his belly. So for him, there was no concept of mind being the brain. And I just always thought that was really interesting and also really cute because he was a cute guy. He's a good man. Anyway, so the term mind is really referring to consciousness as a whole. And scientifically speaking, we know that the brain is involved in consciousness. However, we understand that consciousness is not limited to what happens inside the brain. It extends to many other aspects of ourselves, our entire nervous system, our endocrine system, our digestive system, our heart and cardiovascular system. They all are involved with consciousness and with this psychobiological process that we call consciousness. But in this context, the word mind is used because that's easier than psychobiological process. So our intention, can I be mindful so that when I'm in a particular state of mind, or when a particular state of mind is present, I can identify it as a state of mind, as merely a state of mind, and not identify it as I or mine. So that is, with conscious or loving awareness, can I become the one who witnesses the workings of the mind? Or Can I embody the part of myself that is the observer of this phenomenon instead of identifying with the workings of the mind? Common phrase in this practice is not me, not mine. So as a feeling or a thought's coming up, not me, not mine. It's just a phenomenon of the state of mind. So sometimes practitioners, they hear this and they translate this to mean that thoughts and emotions are evil or that we shouldn't have thoughts and emotions. And that's not true at all. In fact, it's not even possible. Pema Chodron, she says, it's very helpful to realize that the emotions we have, the negativity, the positivity, are exactly what we need to be fully human, fully awake, and fully alive. And Jack Cornfield, he talks about the mind is pretty much constantly active. He says, the mind secretes thoughts the way the salivary gland secretes saliva. I like that one. The mind secretes thoughts the way the salivary gland secretes saliva. It's just a biological process. And another one that I like that I don't know who originally said it, but I've heard it from a bunch of different teachers. Thoughts are to the mind as a sound is to the ear. So it's as if thoughts are just coming from sometimes outside of ourselves and they just come. And in the same way that we can't stop our ears from hearing, we also can't stop our thoughts from thinking. And sometimes they come through words and images or ideas or visions, memories, plans, feelings. So just before we go on, I want to do a little experiment. So this is a painless 60-second experiment. We're not gonna do a super deep practice in this moment. We're just gonna sit for 60 seconds. And the question is, how many thoughts do you have in 60 seconds? Don't worry, you're not gonna have to announce how many thoughts you had or the nature of your thoughts. So you can really just witness them and be honest with yourself, because it's all just for you. So I'm going to warn you, it can be a little sneaky. Sometimes they come in the side door or maybe in through a window in the attic or something. So you'll be sitting and doing your breathing and think, oh, I'm good at this. I haven't had many thoughts at all. I wonder if the other people are as good at quieting the mind as I am, right? 6, 7, 8. Ah, gotcha. 9. And then you notice your breath and you come back and, wow, check me out, noticing my breath. Mindfulness is easy. I'm good at this. 10, 11, 12. So see if you can actually just count. Okay, ready? And again, find a comfortable position. And we're just going to sit for 60 seconds and notice. Okay, I invite you back. So how was that for you? You don't have to announce your number or write it in the chat or anything, but just it's really just a practice to realize and to become aware of just how continual that stream can be. Also, I just wanted to say, I last time I had a little singing bowl that I tried to ring and nobody could hear it. It's like a magical singing bowl that no one hears but me or something. And Gina was kind enough to give me some suggestions about how to alter my Zoom settings, my audio settings. And I tried 4 different settings, Gina, and it still didn't work. So I'm going to just give it up.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for trying. I thought if it was important to the ritual, then I should just say like, oh, maybe it could be this, but I bet it is just magical just for your ears.
Yeah, probably. So I'll use my voice when it's time to end a session. Okay. So thanks again for your troubleshooting advice, Gina. Okay, as we pay attention, so we notice there's lots of different qualities of the mind. So some of the voices are soft, some of them are quite loud, some of them are voices, some of them are words, sometimes pictures or videos or sounds, or sometimes full movies, or sometimes you watch an entire Netflix miniseries in your head while you're meditating. And sometimes it can be very emotional or very physical or very visceral. And one of the things that we sometimes notice when we pay attention is that almost 90% of our thoughts are reruns from previous episodes that we've already thought. It can get very repetitive. And the more we pay attention, the more we can actually see the absurdity of it all. And it can begin to feel very silly. And it helps us take things more lightly. The more we notice this, we can more easily let go of our thoughts and feelings. And because it's like, I've seen this movie before. I've seen this 1,000 times before. And then there's a way it becomes less interesting or maybe less persuasive, less convincing. And it's easier to redirect our attention to the present moment or to something else or another way of thinking. Jack Kornfield talks about walking in the countryside with his teacher, Ajahn Chah. And so Ajahn Chah and a bunch of students are walking in the countryside. And he says, "You see that big boulder over there in the field? Is it heavy?" And some of the students say, "Yeah, it looks pretty heavy." And he says, "No, not if you don't pick it up." So that's kind of the idea. We don't have to pick them up. Some of the thoughts and feelings, they keep coming. Some of them are heavy, and we don't always have to follow them. We don't always have to pick them up. We can just recognize them and acknowledge them, and we can experience it all very deeply. And in other words, we can become mindful of them, but then we can come back to our anchor, and we don't have to habitually react to them. And it can be quite liberating to simply notice the thought process itself or the thought processes themselves. And I like to practice by interrupting myself. That's my favorite way of working with thoughts and feelings. What do I mean by that? I used to think that I needed to let my thoughts come to completion. So I'd have thoughts like, wait, this is a good one. I think I'm onto something. Let me just finish this train of thought and then I'll get to the bottom of it and then I'll be mindful. And then my mind would say, thank you very much. And then it would just go on and on and on. And it never ends. It just never ends. It'll play the rerun 1,000 times. And so what works for me is interrupting myself. As soon as I notice myself thinking, there's a soft mental note that says, thinking, thinking. Or maybe there's a quality of thinking like planning or remembering or whatever it is. You can have a little mental note that describes what quality of thinking there is. The Dalai Lama, when he teaches this, he says, some of your thoughts do not have your best interest in mind. So why would you continue to think them? So in this spirit, we can continue to, we can train our minds and hearts and refocus our attention to some other aspect of our reality. So I can come back to my anchor. So I come back to my body or my breath, or I come back to the sounds in the room, or whatever anchor I choose that works for me. Or I might focus my mind or my heart on a specific cultivation practice. Like I can cultivate loving kindness or compassion or joy and do a specific practice for that. And we'll practice that a little bit next week. We're going to focus on loving kindness. So as I mentioned, we can create these soft mental notes, like a whisper in the mind. As soon as we realize what's happening, oh, planning or remembering or judging or doubting or imagining. But it's helpful to do it very lightly. Like don't let the word then become a big presence. Just use that to interrupt yourself from whatever the process was. Another thing that can help is we can come up with what are the common themes or the top 10 themes that I have to deal with on a regular basis, the recurring thoughts or feelings or stories. And so, okay, worried about my daughter. That's number one. Okay, so daughter anxiety that comes up, or communications with my ex-wife. Oh, there's that story again, going down the rabbit hole of communications with my ex-wife. So just kind of noting, okay, that's that story. And then I don't have to keep going. I've done that already. Or the AI robot apocalypse, or whatever the story is that you like, or financial stress or fear, whatever's troubling you. When you notice it, you can interrupt by saying, oh, that's an interesting story. That one really helps me. Oh, interesting story. So it's an invitation to hold things more lightly. And it's not that the thoughts will go away or stop coming, but it removes the urgency. So sometimes I say, oh, how curious. This is what it's like to experience fear right now. And then I can explore with what are my body sensations? What is my breath doing? What is the feeling or the tone of fear? Oh, interesting story. That's what this is like today. Interesting story. So it doesn't always work with other people. So I don't recommend you going home and saying this to your spouse or your wife or your husband or your partner or friend. So they're having really strong feelings or venting or processing something with you. And maybe it's something that you did or something that you didn't do or something that you said or something that you didn't say. Or maybe it has nothing to do with you at all. But you might be inclined to say, oh, cool story. I'm afraid it won't have the same effect. When we're really in it, it feels so real and it feels so important, and we will not be taken lightly in those moments because it is our truth and it's our reality. So don't try it at home with your beloveds, but you can say it to yourself, and hopefully there's a part of yourself that the part that's telling the story will see the humor in it and have a good laugh. So if we can just for a second consider the possibility that what's happening is just an interesting story. And maybe, possibly, it isn't fully true even. It can be very liberating. So again, I say to myself, cool story. Is that true? I don't know. And then it's really hard to take anything very seriously after that conversation with myself. And then my heart opens up and I can relax. There's one rabbi who practices mindfulness, and he described his daughter woke up in the morning and she said to him, Daddy, you know when you're asleep and dreaming and it seems so real, and then you wake up and realize it was just a dream? When you're awake, you can wake up that much more and realize this is just a dream. And she was 5 years old when she said this. And actually, Sophia, at age 5, she had a similar realization. She says, Dada, is this real or is this a dream? And she asked it like it was a question, but there was like a deep knowing there that it's really the same. So we don't do this practice with the expectation or the intention that the process will ever stop. actually. Um, we just moment by moment recognize and allow, and then we keep coming back again and again and again. And it's really fun. It's actually really interesting. It's an interesting way to be. Um, one of my teachers, Jeannie Zandy, Rachel and I did a retreat with her years ago, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said, "This is where the party is, right here. This is where the party is. So alive. And this is all part of being human." And the beautiful thing is, no feeling is final, and they keep changing like the weather. And so the more we pay attention, the more we realize that even the intense feelings don't last that long. And we can begin to trust this process. And the more we trust the process, we realize we can expand our capacity to open to the full range of feelings that we have. And sometimes it's like this, and sometimes it's like this, and anger is like this, and this is how grief feels, and this is what longing is like, and this is what joy is like. And we begin to just feel it so deeply, and we can bow to each one. And sometimes it is really difficult, and we do get stuck. And when it's difficult, we can ask this simple question: can I be with this? Can I be with this coming up for me right now? And sometimes we have resistance, and the resistance is actually protecting us from something deeper and even more painful. So we might even ask, is there something that I'm not willing to feel right now? What am I not willing to feel? And can I honor that too and recognize that? Tara Brach describes that after years of practicing this, it's not that the feelings don't come anymore, the thoughts don't come, but she says there's less lag time between being caught up in the feeling and trying to push it away or reaching and being present. So we begin to catch ourselves in the process sooner, and we can um, interrupt that process. I'd like to share a poem, and then we'll do a practice again together. So this is called Allow by Dana Fouts. There's no controlling life. Try corralling a lightning bolt, containing a tornado. Dam a stream and it will create a new channel. Resist and the tide will sweep you off your feet. Allow and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in. The wild and the weak, fear, fantasies, failures, and success. When loss rips off the doors of the heart, where sadness veils your vision with despair, practice becomes simply bearing the truth. In the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed to your new eyes. Practice becomes simply bearing the truth. Okay, so let's sit together for just about 20 minutes. Again, I invite you to make yourselves comfortable. So find a seated position that feels comfortable for you or easy, or you're invited to lie down. You're invited to stand up. You can walk, do a walking meditation, whatever works for you. I invite you to close your eyes, or you may keep your eyes partially open if that's more comfortable for you. I invite you to bring your attention to your anchor. So choose which anchor you're going to use today. So that might be body sensations. So you bring attention to the body. I might notice the touch points. Where is my body touching this cushion or chair, ground? I might notice if there's particular parts of my body that are getting my attention. Maybe there's parts of my physical experience that are already pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. So I begin here with this anchor. Or I might choose my breath as my anchor. So I notice my breathing. What is it like to breathe? I might use the breath moving past my nostrils as my anchor, moving down my throat, or the rising and falling of my chest or abdomen. How do I notice my breath today? And regardless of what happens on this journey, I come back to my anchor whenever I notice. Or I might use sounds as an anchor. And every time there's a sound in my field, I bring my attention to the experience of hearing sound. And so I pay attention to my anchor, and then a thought comes. And instead of saying, oh no, a thought distracted me from my practice, how would it be to say, yes, another opportunity to practice, another reminder to come back, another gateway to presence. The eyes see, the ears hear, the mind thinks. So I accept this as simply another part of my human experience. As a thought comes, I might make a gentle mental note, thinking, Then I come back to my anchor. And then another train of thought comes, planning or remembering. And a soft, gentle note comes. And then I come back to noticing my breath, my body. What is it like when you notice the feeling tones, your experience? Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. What's it like right now? What are the feeling tones? And then as the thoughts and emotions sneak back in, I note them, anxiety or worrying. I acknowledge them and feel them. And then I come back again. Sometimes we experience fear. Instead of saying, I'm afraid, we might say, fear is arising. And then we can get curious. What is it like to have fear arising in this consciousness? What is that experience like when I'm really present with fear? and I can get curious about it. What is that like? Or maybe anger arises. And instead of saying, I'm angry, I can say, noticing anger arising. Oh, interesting. What is this like today? And sometimes it gets really complicated and elaborate. We catch ourselves in a movie or a entire story or play. And as soon as we notice that we're doing that, we can say, interesting story. Or, oh, that story again. Oh, that's the fear story. Or that's the anxiety story. It's familiar. And as the thoughts, feelings come, don't be afraid to interrupt them with presence. Sometimes your mind will pretend to be upset with you for interrupting, but secretly the mind longs for your presence. So every time it's a window, it's an opportunity to come back to being present. And I might come back to the feeling tones of this moment. Is my experience pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? And whatever it is, can I be with this? I might even say, yes, this too can be held. Yes, this too, I can be with this. And then it changes. And now this moment, can I observe this moment with curiosity and interest and maybe even humor and lightness? Can I just observe this moment? Can I embrace each thought and each feeling, not as the enemy, but as a friend, as an opportunity to come back to this presence, humanness, this life? Okay, I invite you to wiggle your fingers or your toes, wiggle your spine a little if you'd like. If your eyes were closed, you can open them and come back into the room, or you can keep your eyes closed if you wish. ready, we're going to come back into this Zoom room together. Thank you for practicing together. That was lovely. It's amazing. Each time I'm so touched by how I can feel the field that we create together, even if it's we're not in the same physical space. It's pretty amazing that this technology does this. So I'm grateful for it. Grateful for all of you. Any reflections? How was that for you? Anyone feel inspired to share? No pressure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Under some stress lately. So when I
Hi,
meditate,
Johanna, by the way.
oh hi David,
Great
so
to
good to
see
see
you.
you. Thank you. What I find I do is I tether myself to the words, inhaling, I'm breathing in, exhaling, I'm breathing out. So I can keep thoughts away because I'm so like a dog on a bone with that. So it doesn't feel, I mean, it's relaxing in a way because I'm not going all over the place. But at the same time, it feels like a crutch, a weird, there's something about that that feels, like I feel like there's kind of there's the writing on the breath really consciously with this mantra kind of, and then there's specifically inhaling and breathing in on a, but then somewhere there's a little thought going. It's not saying I'm cheating, but it's somehow like there's this thought like if you let go for a second of those words, the thoughts are going to come rushing in. Like I'm holding the dam back by doing that. So it's stressful. It's a funny
Mm.
little fear, but it's a thing. So it's complex, the grappling. And I because I've just been under some stress lately. So at any rate, like the overall feeling is it's uncomfortable in my body. So that's what I end up focusing on. Like you said, the thing about is it yeah, the overall feeling is not one, it's one of unease.
Mm.
Even though I'm not really getting off on thoughts, but I'm like I'm hanging on, hanging on, hanging on to my breath. Does it make sense? I mean, I just want to say that out
Yeah.
loud. Um,
Thank you for sharing. That's a really beautiful comment and question. I appreciate the feeling in that experience. Are you wanting a response from me?
kind of like, what about that? It's like a crutch. It feels like a crutch. Like, I guess I would love if there's some secret to how to let go of that. And
Yeah.
it's still, I mean, because I know from the old days or something, the stress has been up for a few months now, but it feels like
So
it's become like a crutch, like an addiction, that thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something to pay attention to. So if you were doing that practice and it was really working for you, then great. Then there's nothing wrong with that practice. There's nothing wrong with practices that really focus our mind in that way. Um, and our thoughts and feelings are always there. It's like they'll be there when you're done with your practice if you need them. And so it's not like you're going to escape. And I invite you to become aware of that feeling of discomfort and dis-ease and um, that stress that you're feeling. And what is that like? Because that's what's present for you in the moment. And so as you begin to notice that, oh, this is stressful. Okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm doing this thing, and there's an edge of stress. Okay, well, what is stress like? And then suddenly you're in the moment, you're back into it, and you're not pushing anything away. Because if you're doing the breath work as a way to push something away, then you're actually not being with yourself there. But then, okay, so that happens. We all do that in different ways. So you're doing that, and you're using the breath as a way to do that. But now, okay, I'm doing that, and now it's stressful, and there's an edge of resistance. Okay, well, can I be with that? What's resistance like in this moment? And then it changes. That makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. Yeah. Yeah. It
So
just,
whatever's coming up, you just use that. That's the vehicle for coming back to presence. And who cares what happened the last 15 minutes of your experience? As soon as you realized that this was happening, then you realized it, and now you can be here.
Mm.
And everything else just kind of is history.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then it's not like the thoughts and the emotions that you weren't having for this previous time during your meditation. It's not like you were going to figure them out anyway. So it's not about like following a train of thought or being present with it so that you can resolve it, because it's never going to resolve. It's about like using that as an opportunity to be present. So if your breath does that, then all you need is the breath.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's not enough. So then you have a thought or a feeling. And in this case, the thought or the feeling is the resistance. So then good, I get to be with that. That's my opening.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
It's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Lori, go for it.
I don't know if this is okay or not, but Joanna, as a fellow meditator, I think for me at times it's been really helpful to do a sound meditation, to take myself where there are sounds that will capture my attention. Like I'm outside right now and it's really pleasant and easy to do a sound meditation because there's birds and there's the trees and there's people walking down the street. So I think if maybe you might want to try changing the focus of your meditation if what you're using is really stressful. And I hear what David is saying also about being aware of those feelings, but I've also found it helpful to try changing my focus. I think it was a talk by Joseph Campbell where he was talking about doing that. And David, I also liked when you were talking about feeling tones, because it's something that I hadn't thought about in a long time. There's a woman who gave some great talks about feeling tones, and I was trying to remember her name and I can't, but that's also a really great place to start. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lori, for your experience and input. Appreciate that. Nice to be able to sit outside. That's such a special gift as well. Sweet. Any other comments or questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I can share.
Go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the meditation and for the insights at the beginning. And when I was first trying to drop in, I felt pretty, I guess, like distracted mentally, or like very cerebral. But then as it continued on, I felt like kind of better able to notice those thoughts quicker as they were coming up, kind of like you were saying. And then it kind of felt like I had this realization of like, I'm like able to like witness this universe unfolding through my thoughts. Um, and just felt like this overwhelming sense of gratitude that like I do have thoughts and they're diverse and they're emotional, and I guess just like really felt like very in touch with my human experience, even if it meant perhaps I was not focused on neutrality or emptiness. It felt pretty impactful.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's I think what you're pointing to is exactly the essence of this practice, that we're actually not trying to strive for a certain state or trying to like get to neutrality or emptiness. That is something that happens sometimes and we can, arrive there. But actually the practice is just to be with what's here as you did. We're just feeling what it's like to be human. And there's all these tricks, there's all these different practices that we can like use, like breath and like mantra and all the different things that we have, but that's all just designed to get us here. So, and then you arrived by some kind of grace, and then you get to feel that, and then what is that like for you? Is that pleasant or unpleasant, or what is that like? And then it just keeps compounding, like, oh, then I can be present with that, and then I can be present with this. It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I'm open to staying as long as the group wants, and also I just want to acknowledge that on paper this ends at 7:30. So if you need to go, feel free to go. And if there's any other comments, I'm happy to hang out and talk a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Lovely to practice and see you. And yeah, see you next time. Have a beautiful evening.